Hello, this is Bad Vibes. I'm back. Thank you for being patient while I was gone. Don't worry, I won't have a topic compilation for quite a while, maybe December. I may be a little rusty in this one, but I hope you like it regardless. And sit back, relax, and enjoy. This one happened a few weeks ago, and it happened really fast, in a matter of seconds. So, I'm working as a delivery guy for lunch meals in school. I basically start working at 3 a.m., loading my refrigerated truck with all the meals, couple hundred a day, and deliver them to all kinds of small schools that don't have a real kitchen, and they'll just have to heat up the meals for the kids at lunch. I have to start the work this early because, of course, all the deliveries at the schools have to be before noon. We also deliver to kindergarten, and they need their meals before 10:30. So this morning, I've literally just started my delivery round as I'm arriving at the very first school I deliver. It's a village next to a big road, kind of on a mountain. And to get to the school, you have to drive all the way up to the top of the village, going on little streets. Then the school itself is a bit offset from the road. There's a few houses around, but on the very spot I stop my truck to make my deliveries, there's just a school on one side, and on the other side, there's a few meters of large grass, followed by a parking lot. At this specific spot, there's absolutely no light, since the public lights are off till 5 a.m., and I'm here around 4 a.m. every morning. My only way to get some light is to get to the door where I need to deliver the meals, and to let the engine of my truck run, so I can light up the wall of the school with my headlights. Everything else around me is literally pitch black. So I do my delivery, come back out, close the back door of my truck, and realize I have to take a piss. So I stop by the grass against my truck to do it before hopping back in. As I said, it's pitch black. I'm literally facing darkness, and I can't see shit in front of me except for the lights of the city that is like about 10 miles away downhill. I'm chilling here while peeing, looking at the sky cause there's not a cloud. Since there's no public lights, I can see the stars pretty good. Then as I'm finishing, I put my head back down to a more normal line of sight. With the lights of the city downhill in front of me, I see a silhouette passing in front of it. I literally get goosebumps thinking about it again and writing about it. I can just see the shape of a head and shoulders passing by a few meters in front of me in the darkness, and I only see it because of the city that's far away. At this moment, I'm done and closing my belt to get back in my truck, and I kinda instantly freak out, started walking along the side of my truck to get back in. I was behind the truck peeing, not close to the driver's door. I'm thinking to myself, nah man, that wasn't real. You didn't see a head and shoulders, just some leaves or a branch getting in the view, and you misinterpreted that. But I wasn't buying it at all. I was sure of what I saw, and I was freaking out. But here's the worst part. Once I'm back in my truck ready to leave, clutching into first gear, I take a look to my left mirror as I'm starting to slowly put my truck in motion, and there, I fucking see a figure behind my truck peeking to check on me as I got back into my truck. It confirmed that I didn't imagine it. There is someone here at 4 a.m. in complete darkness, pitch black, walking here for some reason, just a few meters in front of me, and they could clearly see me cause remember I left the headlights on to light up the wall. So I was watching pitch black, but they could see me clearly, and the engine was running next to me, so I couldn't hear if they made little noises when walking around. And this person followed me back to my truck and peeked at me for whatever reason. I got so freaked out, and I still am. I'm not delivering to the school for 2 weeks because it's winter holidays here in France, but I'm generally scared to go back there. I might be a 6'3", 230-pound dude, but this is scary as fuck. How could you even hope to defend yourself as someone wants to attack you if they can clearly see you and you can't? So this happened about 15 years ago when I was 18. I used to work in a newsagent cafe franchise in a large mall. We got a lot of creeps for some reason, to the point that all of the girls stopped wearing makeup and tried to have the worst hairstyle we could to make us as unappealing as possible. So you can imagine the extent of the issue. I've always looked younger. I had to show my ID to buy alcohol until I was 30, so with no makeup, I probably looked about 15. One day, a creepy dad comes in with his son. The dad was over 50, huge, bald, dressed in all leather, biker style. And his son was about my age and looks like the stereotypical nerd, thin, tall, glasses, looking at his feet. First, the dad asked to buy some bus tickets. I checked the drawer, which is pretty low, and had to bend down to look into it. This is important. But I didn't see any, so I asked my coworker to check if there are any in the back. She comes back and says, "We're out." So I say, "I'm sorry, sir, we don't have any tickets at the moment." And here's where the creepiness begun. "Oh, that's a shame. Could you maybe look in the drawer again? You look so pretty when you bend over." I'm a bit shocked, but I say, "I'm sure we don't have any left, sir." I can see him looking at our cigarette shelf, which goes all the way up the wall to the ceiling. He makes a smug face and says he wants Marlboros. They are at the very top, and I would have to use a ladder to get to them. But for that very reason, we had a box of cigarettes from the top shelf under the counter. So I make a smug face too, and pour the Marlboros from there. "Oh no, I was hoping that you'd go on the ladder, so I could have a better look at you." I was trying really hard to tell myself not to say fuck off. "Well, I have them here, so no need for the ladder." Shame. "Oh, what's that pendant you have there?" While basically shoving his face into my cleavage. I jumped back, of course. I was really uncomfortable at this point. I now know that the easiest way out of it would be to ask my male colleague to take over, but this was my first job, and I didn't know any better. So I didn't say anything, and was just quickly packing his stupid cigarettes so I could get rid of him ASAP. In the meantime, his poor son, visibly embarrassed, pulled his sleeve once every so often, and went, "Dad, can we please go?" But the dad didn't react to that at all. I mean, total silence. Didn't even look at him. Finally, the cigarettes are packed. I tell him his total, and as he's paying, he goes, "What time are you getting off work tonight, honey?" With a sleazy smile. The son is completely red in the face and keeps repeating, "Dad, let's go," but to no avail. At that moment, something finally clicked in my brain, and I remembered an interview with a beauty pageant contestant who said the best way to blow off old creeps is to make them feel, well, old. So I smiled my most beautiful smile and said with a sweet giggly voice, "Oh sir, I think you're even older than my daddy." Well, that did it. He got red, grabbed his son and literally stormed out, dragging the kid behind him. He even left his cigs, so there's a silver lining there. Because I'm a smoker, and since they were already paid for, and he didn't come back for them, my boss let me take them. Still, it was really creepy, and I'm uncomfortable thinking about it even after these 15 years. I'm also sorry for the kid. He seemed nice, and I can't imagine the embarrassment I would feel if my dad was hitting on and harassing girls my age. I'm a 20-year-old female. I work as a bank teller. I noticed a guy around my age who would come in with an older man. They'd come in and do their banking and would try to have a conversation with me. The vibe that they gave off immediately made me uncomfortable. They looked like sharks circling their prey. They would compliment me on how attractive I was and would say how nice my shirt showed off my breast. I wore business attire, so there was nothing inappropriate in what I was wearing. I tried my best to ignore it and focus on my job. Every time they'd come in, they'd make inappropriate comments to me. One day, I saw them walking from the parking lot towards the door. I quickly told my boss that those were the men that came in and that had been bothering me. She told me to hide in the back area, and I quickly obliged. A few of my coworkers waited on some of the other customers. After 10 minutes, one of my coworkers came in to tell me that the guy had brought a pumpkin in for me as a gift. My boss told them that I was on lunch, but he insisted that he would wait to give it to me in person. After a half hour of these men standing in the lobby, some of my coworkers gave me glances of pity from where they were standing. My boss finally told them that I had to leave early, and they left the pumpkin with one of my coworkers to give to me. I came out of the vault, and 3 of my coworkers asked me what was this all about. I filled them in and told them that I refused to wait on those men going forward. They laughed and asked why they were passing out a pumpkin as a gift. I quickly threw it in the trash and felt very uncomfortable. On another day, I was managing the customers in the lobby all by myself. We were short-handed, and it was during lunchtime. The same guy who gave me the pumpkin walked in. The older guy wasn't with him today. I nervously looked around and didn't see my boss in her office. He came to my counter with his creepy smile and asked how I liked the pumpkin. I was very nervous, and I'm sure it showed, but he didn't seem to care. I noticed that he was moving his hands rhythmically below his belt while looking very turned on. I could tell he was trying to pleasure himself, but the counter was blocked from my view, thank God. But I remember that there were cameras where he was standing. He suddenly left when another customer walked in. When my boss came back into the office, I told her what happened. The next day, the two men came back in looking for me. I quickly hid, and my boss motioned for them to step in her office. I don't know exactly what was said, but they were told not to come back to our branch location or they would experience consequences. I never saw them again. So about 25 years ago, I worked for a company that hired handicapped people to work at various places like recycling centers and so on. I primarily supervised 2 different crews, one during the week and one on weekends, and they had 2 people per crew. Most of the people I employed were mentally stunted in some capacity, but were hard workers. The 2 weekend workers I hardly ever saw, so I'm gonna focus on Amanda and Peter. Not their real names, for privacy. Peter is the subject of the story, but Amanda was fascinating in her own right, as she admitted to me after working with her for a while that she never washed her clothes. She literally wore the same matted, dingy outfit every day, all day, and only bathed once a month. All their teeth were blackened, rotten nubs, and the sheer, unadulterated putrid smell that emanated from her body and her mouth was truly vile. I'm not exaggerating by saying that I could not be within a few feet of her for more than a second, and even then I held my breath. She was actually okay to deal with, and other than her extreme lack of any semblance of hygiene, was a good worker and generally amiable. But enough about her. So the first thing you noticed about Peter was that he was large. I am stocky, 6 foot, and wear XL, and Peter made me look like a medium. He also had a metal prosthetic where his right hand used to be. Naturally, being young at the time, I asked Peter what happened to his hand. Not immediately, but after working together a while. He explained that he didn't want to talk about it, but he did tell me that he has schizophrenia and that he took lithium. He was a big teddy bear generally, and unless spoken to, was very quiet. To be honest, he was kind of a sad figure that projected a somber loneliness to him. He told me once about how he was a security guard at an abandoned warehouse at one time and had to quit because he heard some disembodied voices communicating to him from the machine and AC noises. But mostly he was just quiet and gentle when he was around me. If not approached, he could just sit and stare at the wall for hours, and I'm not joking. We tended the grounds of the interstate rest area from late afternoon till evening. I stayed there a couple hours after Amanda and Peter left, and one night Peter asked if he could stay with me and talk with me. This was almost after a year working together. I told him, sure, but it would have to be off the clock. We ended up sitting out in the company truck in the parking lot. It was about 11 p.m. We were talking about all random types of things that I no doubt brought up, as he was introverted. He suddenly asked me if I wanted to know what happened to his hand. I tried not to show my excitement, but I had been morbidly curious for months. He tells me that when he was a teenager, that he had got involved with a satanic cult. His words. In retrospect, he is from a small town and a very religious family. They were probably Wiccan or pagan, or just having a laugh. So after a while, he becomes obsessed that these Satan worshippers had put the mark of the beast on his hand. He could not get the idea out of his head. I should also add, at this point, he was not yet diagnosed with schizophrenia, and no one knew that he was slowly losing touch with reality. Finally, after a few weeks of obsessing, he goes out to his parents' woodshed and takes a fishing knife and proceeds to cut off his own hand. I asked him what he felt, What was he thinking? What it looked like? He said that he couldn't feel much of it in his near religious psychosis, but remembers when he cut through the tendons and viscera of his wrists that they sprang back up the forearm like a taut rope suddenly released of pressure. He said that all he could think over and over was, "I'm going to heaven," since presumably he had cut off the mark of the beast. Meanwhile, I could only imagine the blood-curdling screams probably got the attention of his poor parents. Wonder both of them rushed out to see what was wrong. Can you imagine finding your child covered in blood, missing a hand, and ranting about the mark of the beast and revelations? So they grabbed him and rushed him to the nearest hospital. Since this was a very small town, they flew him to a larger town with adequate facilities for such trauma. Before sending him, one of the doctors asked if they had brought the hand so it could be reattached. In their haste and panic, his parents had overlooked it, so someone was sent back for the gruesome task of recovering the hand to send it to the hospital. The officer, or whomever was sent, went back, and the hand was gone. Now, I know what you're thinking. Bullshit. I thought so too, but it makes sense when you think about it. We live out in the middle of the Ozarks. Either a dog, a raccoon, or a coyote could have got it. Who knows how long it took for all this to transpire. In any event, he had surgery to heal the wound and was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic. He later got fitted for one of those shoulder cables to open a prosthetic hook. It gave him limited use, but was better than nothing. This was before the cool prosthetics that they have now. I asked him about what would have happened if they reattached the hand, had they have found it. He said at the time, and under the state of mind, he would have cut it off again. There's more to the story, but it's too long as it is. I should also add, I haven't seen Peter in nearly 25 years, but I think about him a lot, and I hope he's doing better. On Tuesday, I had a person come into my job. I worked in women's clothing, and it was a customer I had helped on 3 other occasions over the last 8 months. They said that they were a man with he/him as pronouns, but that his girlfriend liked it when he dressed up in women's clothing. I didn't find anything wrong with this because I enjoyed helping people feel good about themselves. I asked if this was consensual, and he said yes, he enjoyed it too. On this particular day, he came in, this time with a wig and dress on, which again, I found no issues with. In fact, I felt proud of him. He asked for the fitting room once no one else was in the store, and asked for my opinion on something he was wearing. I agreed. He opened the fitting room door and was standing there with a blouse on and no pants, but was wearing a pink and white polka dotted diaper. I was shaking and uncomfortable, but maintained my composure and said that the top was cute and turned away. He tried on another outfit and was fully clothed this time and asked if we had anything shorter because his girlfriend likes when he's getting a pedicure and the lady doing his toes can see his diaper. I grew more uncomfortable, but being alone, I didn't say anything other than, "Oh, that's interesting." He asked if we had any long shirts that can be used as a dress, and I said yes and went to fetch them. I came back and one by one he came out with a top with his diaper showing, and even told me the story about him peeing himself at a sex store and his girlfriend changing his diaper in front of the employees who were turned on by this. The discomfort grew and grew until I was shaking and texted my coworker to come in early. He comes out of the fitting room in the dress he came in with and turned away and acted like he was on the phone, but I noticed it was a calculator instead. I stood there trying to calm down and everything when he comes back and says that his girlfriend gave him a task of taking a photo with me in his bra and diaper. I declined and said I wasn't okay with that. He said that it was okay, but that he was going to get a spanking from her later. He left shortly after, thanking me for my help, but not purchasing anything, which was a first. I brushed the experience off as a weird occurrence and went about my day thinking that I wouldn't see him again for a few months. I went home later that day and my coworker texted me saying that he was back doing the same thing to her and that he left again without making a purchase. The next day I asked my coworker to come in early so I wasn't there alone, and she did. He came in again, and I went to the back because I was about to have a panic attack. I felt sexually harassed simply just looking at him and picturing the look he had when he was staring at me in his diaper. I overheard him asking my coworkers my name and when I would be working again. She didn't give him either, and he left again, making a purchase on the blouse he had tried on the day before. My coworker told me he identifies as she, which threw me off since it contradicted what he had told me the day before. At this point, I filed a report with the police. An officer comes to talk to me, and I tell him everything. The next day, I was off work, and I get a call from my coworker saying that he drove by looking into the store, and when my coworker caught him staring, he drove away. I went to the police station since I had to drop off my statement and informed them on what happened. The next day, I opened the store and had to go by the bank. When I was driving to the bank, I noticed his truck outside of an auto parts store. I called the investigator and told him about this, and he got the tag number and noticed he had a sticker from a local campsite that expires Monday. It's February. Who the fuck is camping in February by a lake? All in all, I feel good knowing more about him than he knows about me. I know his name, where he works, and that he's got a campsite until Monday. I didn't see him yesterday or today, and I'm hoping that he got the message that he scared the fuck out of me. I'll keep you updated as this goes on. Edit. For context, I'm a 25-year-old female. I'm 5'2". The man from this post is about 6'5", 350 pounds, late 30s, mid 40s. Hopefully this will help shed some light on why I was worried to call this person out on their shit while I was alone. Update. He came in today while I was working, and the cops were called. He has been banned from the store, and if he comes back, he'll be arrested. If anything else happens, I'll be sure to post it here. About a month ago, I started working at a nursing home near where I live. I gotta say, it's not a bad job if strong smells and putrid sights don't bother you. The residents here are usually sweet and lovable, although there is rude, grumpy people here as well. Who can really blame them though? They don't have many years left, and many of them don't get visitors anymore. It fulfills me to talk with them and give them someone to talk to since their families are no longer around. All was going well here with the job until they put me on the dementia wing. I've always known that I would have to work in this wing. They bounce me around floors, pretty much wherever they need me. At first, it was just another normal day, putting together my carts and clean the floors. However, after I came back from my 15-minute break, I started getting very unsettled. I'm not sure what caused this trigger, but if I had to guess, it was because I was too tired to really take in how creepy this side of the facility was. The rooms are strewn about, almost randomly, as if they are trying to pack as many people in here as possible. The residents here are often gray and gloomy, missing hair and teeth. I walked along the crowded halls, cleaning room by room, really taking in these people's lives and trying to piece together some story. What unnerved me more was the rooms without a lot of possessions, as if someone simply said, "They're so far from gone, why would they need a lot of stuff?" Broken clocks that no longer worked, or were set at a very wrong time, as if to really pound in my head that most of these men and women have no concept of time anymore. The overhead lights would drone on. The rectangular boxes that house a reminder of the back rooms in a vague sense. This reminder was greatly heightened in the residents' bathrooms, where the buzzing was harsher, louder, more vivid. I turned off I don't know how many lights in those bathrooms to ease myself a bit. The walls were a pinkish tan color. For some reason, the color seemed to fit perfectly with the unsettling atmosphere. The staff was even creepy in a sense. The way they weren't put off by it, but seemed joyful, made me feel more out of place here. I wanted to go home this day. I'm not a weak-minded person by any means, but something about the atmosphere was making me incredibly uncomfortable, like I was a ghost walking through these halls. Now, there's only about 10 to 15 rooms left. I pulled my cart into the big open alcove in the hallway where most of the residents were sitting in wheelchairs, as none of them had the strength to walk anymore. They were staring mindlessly at the TV playing cute videos of animals, assumingly to put the residents at ease. However, this one thing that made me feel comfort quickly turned to dread. Their eyes, they looked at me with such sorrow, as if to say help me, without saying anything at all. I'm not really sure how many of them could actually speak. Some of them would look at me and ask me, "Where am I?" And I'm at a loss as I don't know how to answer in a way that they would understand. Then, the screaming, the cries for help, the yelling for anyone to comfort them. Yelling out blood-curdling screams when the nurses would remotely touch them in any way. I just have to watch as I'm just a janitor who cleans their rooms. No, their homes. I'm not allowed to touch the patient. No way to give them comfort other than words when they can barely hear, let alone process what I'm saying. This wing is so unnerving and sad. While listening and watching, all this does is remind me of a piece of art known as Everywhere at the End of Time, and I feel as if this experience is only more unnerving, having prior knowledge of the sad piece of art. The worst part of all, this could easily be any one of us when we get old, not knowing what is real and what isn't, and crying out for loved ones who aren't there and will never come. At work on Monday, a guy came up to me asking if we had coupons. He was all leaned on the counter, asking me how my day was, asking if I worked third shift, and calling me beautiful. Then, literally today, I'm scrolling on Facebook and I see a picture of him, and the thing that said that he murdered his grandma. I'm pretty sure it was a few days ago, because it said the police went to do a welfare check this morning, so it makes me think that no one had heard from her for a little while. I'm stunned. So, I work the overnight shift at a hotel. We get some weirdos every now and then, but it's usually nothing more than the typical drunk asshats come from a nearby club looking if there's any available rooms. Around 1 a.m., this very normal looking woman comes in and is taking a long while in the lobby before coming to the desk to check in. I look up her reservation and try to run her card, but it keeps declining. She responds by saying just check her in anyways and that she'll figure it out later. Obviously I can't do that, to which she tells me to get a manager. I get my manager, who explains the same thing, and this lady switches up her entire demeanor instantly and starts acting fucking crazy. What follows was honestly more comical to me than creepy, but she starts speaking in third person, claiming that her vessel is being used by a demon and that if we didn't treat her with more respect, she would curse our entire lives. My manager says something along the lines of, "Cool, but we still need a credit card." And then this woman starts mixing up all types of lore and terminologies from popular witch media, calling us muggles and listing off the curses that she would be putting on us, and that it would be for 1,000 years minimum. She also kept saying that she used to work for Teen Vogue magazine. Anyways, eventually security came to escort her out, but the whole thing was weird as hell. Cracks me up, but also creeps me out. I am a dog walker for a small but busy company. I have one client in somewhat of a nicer neighborhood that I go to twice a week in the mornings. Like most people who use dog walkers, they use a lockbox. They decided to keep theirs behind a vase next to their apartment door. It was already a busy Monday for me, and I was in a bit of a rush. I was hoping to get Maya, their Bernedoodle puppy, by 9:45 so I could stay on track for the day. After finding parking, which is usually hell, I made my way up the apartment to the door. I wrapped my hands around the vase, intending to grab the lockbox. Nothing. I wasn't alarmed at first. Sometimes the owner forgets to put out the lockbox. Not super common, but it happens. I look around for a bit, but have no luck, so I text the owner. I'll call her Kay for her privacy. Usually when I do text her, I get no response since she's so busy, but I text her anyways, asking her where the lockbox could possibly be, since it's not in the usual spot. About 5 minutes pass without a response, and I'm honestly getting a bit irritated. I already have a busy day driving all around the city, and now I'm going to be running behind. So I start knocking. There's a chance that her husband would be home. Sometimes he is. I knock about 3 separate times until I hear some shuffling upstairs, so someone is home. It takes a bit of time, but I hear someone making their way down the stairs. The door opens. It's not Kay, nor her husband. A man stands in front of me. He's only wearing a white towel that's barely hanging off his hips. He's holding mine in his arms, and he's extremely caught off guard. I'm confused and also caught off guard, but I'm not quite horrified. Maybe they're having a visitor stay with them, or maybe someone was having an affair. Maybe that's why the lockbox was absent. Hey, I'm here to take Mia for her walk. He lets her run out into the hallway and hands the leash and collar over, which are always on the staircase railing. I asked him to please give me the lockbox to keep outside since I needed to get back inside, and he gives it to me. We head out for the walk, and I'm a bit flabbergasted. Did I just walk in on an affair? Was he a visitor? It wasn't too out of the ordinary. Sometimes clients forget to mention they have guests. Then during my walk, I get a message from my manager. Do you have Maya? Then she calls. I pick up and let her know that I have Maya and we're on the walk. She says she just got a weird message from Kay, the owner. She had stated that a man had came by earlier, saying that he was the new dog walker and needed their lockbox code. I guess her husband gave him the code. I then told her about the man in the towel when I got to the apartment and how the lockbox was gone. Told her that I wasn't sure if I had walked in on something or if he was a guest. Well, he wasn't a secret lover or a guest. He was not supposed to be there. Police were called immediately. I was told to absolutely not go back into the home. I called Kay's husband, and as he was on his way back over, Kay was en route from work. The husband tells me that he feels so stupid for telling the man the code and believing him, but that he was in a rush out the door and didn't assume anything bad. I continue walking down the street, quite a busy major street, and then I spot a familiar man across the street. He runs across the street towards me, holding a beer in his hand. Hi doggy, he goes. It was the same man from inside the apartment, and then he just ran back across the street. I immediately turned in the other direction into one of the side streets and called Kay's husband. He was nearing the neighborhood and tells me he just saw a man matching the description. Once Kay and her husband arrived, we went upstairs to scope out the apartment, expecting something to be missing. Nothing. Everything was perfectly in place, untouched. The only thing different was some dirty water in the shower that had just been used. I was so happy that no one was hurt, but how did he know that they had a dog walker? I work part-time at a grocery store, and I usually work the closing shift. About 30 minutes to close, a lady comes to my register. She's polite, friendly, and seemed very normal. She pays for her groceries, and I hand her the receipt. She leaves. Seemed normal to me. About 10 minutes after we close, I'm headed to my bike, but she stopped me before I could leave the store. She claimed that she had left her phone inside, and that she needed to get it. She hadn't left her phone. It would have been at the register, and I had thoroughly cleaned it, as well as the surrounding area before I clocked out. But I offered to go in and check anyways, because maybe it had been dropped on the floor. I wanted to get home, and luckily, my manager offers to call her phone, so I headed back to my bike to get going. The moment I take the lock off my bike, she drives over to me, making small talk. It's a bit weird, seeing that I'm clearly trying to get home, and she doesn't know me at all. She tells me that I have a cool bike, asking me where I got it. I explained to her that it's electric, and I had got it from Amazon. She tells me that she didn't know that they made electric bikes, but then tells me a few minutes later about how she's been looking to get an electric bike for a while now. She asked to take a picture of my bike, and then suddenly asked me why I was still wearing my mask, going on about how it could give me sinus problems. I declined to take it off since she's taken a photo, which I noticed the camera is aimed more so at me than my bike, even though I stepped away so she could get a better view of the bike itself. Unknown to me, my manager and another worker were watching the whole interaction, and after this woman finally left, they went over to me and asked if I was okay. I didn't really think much of it, telling them that it was fine and that she just wanted to know about my bike. I headed home, but on my way I thought a little bit more about the interaction. She came back to the store claiming she lost her phone, but had it on her the whole time. She took a picture with it. She kept repeating my name in our conversation as often as she could, almost like she was trying to memorize it. She took a photo of me as well as my mode of transportation, all while trying to get me to take off my mask right before taking it, as if to be able to see my entire face. Sorta creepy. Even weirder was when I turned back to the store to see if she was still there. I saw a police car, which, after leaving the parking lot, turned its sirens on and sped off in the direction the lady left in. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but this interaction just seemed really strange. Anyway, let me know if I'm overthinking things, or if you'd be creeped out too. I'm a female. When this happened, I was 19 years old. I was going to a local community college, but I was working part-time at a local bakery to make some extra cash. I still lived with my parents. I worked for a nice family-owned bakery. I was a cashier. They hired professional cooks to do the rest. The layout of the bakery was like this. Front side, where the customers came in and chose what they wanted and paid. This is where I mostly worked. In the middle of the building is where the orders are taken and where the breads and cakes were packaged and boxed. The back of the store was mostly storage. All flours, sugars, and ovens were stored back there. There was a crew of about 8 guys that worked in the back after the cooks left for the day. They mostly cleaned the equipment and almost never came up front. There's this guy around my age who obviously liked me. However, he didn't speak English, so we never spoke. I'll call him Rob. If I had to go in the back, he'd always wink or blow kisses at me. I mostly ignored him as I wasn't interested. Rob must have let the other crew members know that he was interested, because every time I would go back there, one of the other guys would whistle, and Rob would come out from wherever he was and stare adoringly at me. I didn't feel threatened yet, but it was getting annoying. I didn't tell my boss because I was embarrassed. They hired an extra person back there. Let's call him H. H heard that Rob liked me, so he decided to like me too. Soon, H was flirting, but was more aggressive than the other one. They were clearly competing against one another. I had to go back to retrieve some boxes, and H put his hand on me, told me I was his girlfriend. I was too afraid to tell him to leave me alone. I was leaving for the day, and both these guys were in their own cars, parked next to me. They were waiting for me to leave. I get in my car, and H opens my passenger door and hops in. He tells me, "You're driving me to my house." I was way different than I am now, 25 years later. Now, I would have told him to leave, but back then, I was scared, and I always felt as if I couldn't defend myself. He grabbed my hand and kept calling me his girlfriend. I drove him and dropped him off, which was close by. All the while, the car with this Rob guy and 5 other of the crew members were tailgating me all the way there. I could literally hear them keep yelling bitch and slut in their native language at me. Because how dare I do this to Rob, even though I never said or hinted that I ever liked these guys. Another time, when I tried to leave work, Rob and those same 5 men tried to follow me home. I made a bunch of turns and ended up losing them. That's when I knew I couldn't take this anymore. I found a new job and put in my 2 weeks notice. Other than my boss, I told no one else I was quitting. On my last day, I had to go to the back room to get some supplies. H walked up to me and said, "You're taking me home again. I'll see you outside at 4. I look over and see Rob looking at me angrily, and he called me a slut again. This is when I knew this was about to get a lot worse. It was bad enough that the other workers tried to keep tabs on me. One of them stole my number from the boss's office. Thankfully, they didn't find my address. My plan was I was going to clock out right at 4 and then hopefully get out of there without him catching me. I got my coat that I kept in the front of the store, which was usually kept in the back. I did this so I didn't have to go back there. Right at 4, I went to the office section and clocked out. There was no one back there. I got into the parking lot with nobody in sight and drove out of there. Later that night, H called my phone asking for me. My mom told him that I was moving out, so he shouldn't call back. I'm glad that stopped it. I had to go back to the bakery a week later to get my paycheck. This was before automatic deposits, where your check goes right into your bank account. One of the friends of Rob was working and saw me. He looked at me as if I committed murder or something. I'm real glad I left that job when I did. The situation was going to get worse. I would have definitely handled this differently if this happened now.